Devlin, Untamed.
Welcome to the podcast, people. Martin Devlin, Lachlan Moore, iOS, It's Only Sport. That's the name of our daily radio show. It is on the platform 1 till 4, the only true daily independent sports program in this country. We talk to the newsmakers, we talk to the opinion leaders, we have your calls, contributions, text messages. We just sit and rave and rant about sport for 3 whole hours today. Big topic, the vote. NZR HQ tomorrow, P1 versus P2, the current administration versus the dreaded PUs, that's the provincial unions. David Pilkington, chairman of the review panel. His name is on that report, the Pilkington report. He was on the show today. You will hear from him ahead of this vote tomorrow. Tana Umaga, MP coach, reflecting on the season so far. 4 wins. Well, only had 1 last year. That's got to be a raging success. 1 game to go. Yeah, mathematically they can still make the finals. They'll away the Crusaders on Friday night. Today is also the anniversary of Hillary and Tenzing conquering Everest. Peter Hillary, eldest son of Sir Ed, was on the show to reflect and talk about just how that has forever affected his family, been a part of his family, will forever be the legacy of his family. The proliferation of paid to get to the top climbers and the traffic jam photos that we see every summer climbing season on Everest. What exactly his father and Sherpa Tenzing did, the equipment that they used. Could you even climb that mountain? Or who would these days using that equipment? And he himself has got there twice, but he's also turned back twice. What goes through your head when you are so close to the top and you decide, no, it's more important that I live, that I get down to tell the tale. Peter Hillary was on the program. Miles Davis, blah, 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 BTE, the Brendan Telfer experience, all of that. But first, as always, we begin the show the same way every day. Tablets in hand and gather my flock. It is time for a sermon appropriate on Mt Everest Day. What's going to happen tomorrow at NZR? Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
10:30 tomorrow morning, we are going to know this, the result of the SGM vote at NZR HQ on the future direction and governance of our national game. Rugby. 2 proposals are there for the PUs, that's the provincial unions, to vote on. The Pilkington review, which recommended that they vote themselves out of existence, or P2, Proposal 2, which preserves the status quo, and the unions still get to run the game here, which in turn would mean the RPA, the Rugby Players Association, representing the professional players under Rob Nichol, will rebel as he's publicly threatened and try and form an alternative organisation to split from New Zealand Rugby and run the game themselves. Look, it's all very weighty, it's all very involved, hundreds of pages, tens of thousands of words. Save yourself the trouble reading the Old Testament-sized epic. Essentially, it comes down to whether or not those who get to vote tick P1, Proposal 1, which, as I said, would appoint a 9-person board of independent directors without input from the provincial unions to run rugby here in New Zealand, or Proposal 2, which would maintain the status quo where the provincial unions still get to control who gets to sit on the board. The Pilkington Review famously stated that the current structure is, I quote, not fit for governance and complete overhaul is needed. Now, almost 90 people will vote tomorrow on behalf of the 27 unions. Each union gets between 2 and 7 votes, depending on how many registered club teams there are in the catchment area over the age of 13. It's a secret ballot and needs a 2/3 majority to enact any change. So what's going to happen? I think this is the only certainty in a very uncertain future for the way the game is administered in this country. The PUs will vote P2, Proposal 2. They'll reject the Pilco's report and they'll retrench even further into their own bunker where they believe they are the best people and the only answer to solving all of rugby's many issues and problems. That's when the S-fight will really start. The vote will maintain the status quo, which in turn will kickstart a pseudo-revolution of its own. The only thing we know for certain after tomorrow is that nothing will change. And the real fight will begin in earnest over eventually who will actually run our national game.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
Our text number is 5050. If you have time, then do. I'd like just you to simply tell us which way you think they're going to vote tomorrow. The PUs are going to vote themselves out of existence, so it's either P1, tick that, or tick P2. What do you want to happen, and which way do you think that vote will go? 1:11 time. Miles is about 4 minutes away.
Where to start? The Māori Rugby Board has joined the public style show for governance of the game on the eve of a crucial vote, and it's backing New Zealand Rugby's plan. In a statement, the board states, "We support a fully independent board appointed by a panel of experts in governance and rugby leadership for the benefit of the sport as a whole." On-field rugby issues. Hurricanes hooker Raymond Tuputupu has been handed a 3-match ban for his dangerous tackle on Chiefs lock Tupu Vai. That was in their Super Rugby matchup between the Canes and the Chiefs last Friday night. One of Team New Zealand's America's Cup boats has been damaged after nosediving and capsizing in a spectacular crash in Auckland yesterday. Team New Zealand's youth team were testing one of their AC-40s around the Waitemata Harbour and lost control, veering violently off their foils before slamming the bow into the water.
Hang on a sec. So that's an AC. That's not an America's Cup boat because they're the AC-75.
So it must be a testing boat.
Well, it's whatever it is. It doesn't affect anything to do with the America's Cup.
Well, it's just a story that they've just damaged one of their boats.
I mean, they've damaged a boat, yeah, but the way that the story reads is that they say, that it sounds like, oh my God, we've damaged the America's Cup boat. That's a lovely little piece of clickbait, wasn't it? What?
Well, the headline is Team New Zealand boat damaged after dramatic nosedive and capsizing in testing. It doesn't say their America's Cup boat's been damaged.
Okay, well,
so I think
Team New Zealand boat.
I think you're assuming too much.
I'm a dumbass. Team New Zealand boat with an America's Cup coming. What's the natural bridge that you would build here? Keep going. No, I'm just saying.
An AC-40 is a half-scale America's Cup boat, by the way, so it's just a lot smaller. French tennis player Terence Atmain, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, Atmain, has apologised for hitting a spectator with a ball at the French Open. Atmain angrily struck a ball and accidentally hit the female spectator in the leg. This was on Sunday. He wasn't disqualified but received a warning for unsportsmanlike conduct. Speaking of the French Open, winners at Roland Garros overnight include Novak Djokovic, Holger Rune, Alex de Minaur, Casper Ruud in men's singles. In women's singles, Victoria Azarenka, Madison Keys, Arina Sabalenka, Daria Kasatkina. They have all advanced to the next round. Champion New Zealand race mare Imperatriz, Champion New Zealand race mare Imperatriz has been sold for 6.6 million Australian dollars, which is 7.14 million New Zealand. Massive pay packet. It's an Australasian record for a race mare. This at the Magic Millions Broadmare sale on the Gold Coast yesterday. 2 women have filed a civil lawsuit in Florida accusing NFL kicker Brandon McManus of sexually assaulting them while they worked as flight attendants on the Jacksonville Jaguars transatlantic trip to London last year. Now, if you went to the Herald website, it tells you that Brandon McManus is an NFL star. As a big NFL fan, I can tell you right now he's not a star.
He's not a star.
He's
no.
a no-name.
No name.
He's a nothing name.
Yeah, but if they just put NFL player sexual assault, well, it's not clickbait, is it? So you've got to put star.
No, but
there.
you'd still click on it.
Well, if they had NFL no name, I'd probably click on it. But when it's NFL star, straight away, who's that?
Well, of course, you think, is it a quarterback?
Oh,
no.
Brandon who?
McManus.
Well, who are you, mate? What he did on the plane sounds just pretty revolting anyway, rubbing up against hostesses and things on a private plane hired to get the Jags over to London for that game last year.
NBA playoffs, Western Conference Finals, the Mavericks and the Timberwolves in Game 4. The Timberwolves did jump out to a pretty handy lead. They were up by 12 at one point, but it's now 30-27. The Timberwolves are up. I think it's into the second quarter. I'm currently don't have a scoreboard on my screen right now. I've just got a replay. It is the second quarter, 9.5 minutes left. Minnesota looking to avoid a sweep. If they can win this, the series goes back to Minnesota for Game 5. If Dallas wins, they sweep and they go through to the NBA Finals against the Boston Celtics. That's what's making news, Martin.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
Tana Umaga. We're not playing tiddlywinks. Remember that famous quote when he was the All Black captain? Had a stint there coaching the Blues and then moved on to MP, Moana Pasifika, his first year in charge. And 4 wins on board and going into the last round with the mathematical possibility of making the 8. Surely that's got to be a triumphal season, doesn't it? I mean, you've got to celebrate that, do you not? Tana Umaga was on the show today. I'm loving your season. I mean, last year the team won 1 game. This year you've won 4. So it hasn't finished yet. I do know the season, but just reflecting on what it's been so far, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, we're pretty positive. Obviously, we're still looking to finish on a high note. Going down to Christchurch and playing the Crusaders is not an easy task by any means, and they're a bit of a resurgent now at the back end. But we're still we're still going to go down there and give it our best, and we've still got a chance, and making the quarterfinals too. So there's a lot to play for. So it's been hard to reflect really, because we've been so, as you do, week to week, you're just so engrossed in it, and you forget about what's happening. But I'm sure when we sit back, like, as you mentioned, we've built on the first 2 years, and I think that's all we can do, is just trying to get better and keep building on the foundations that have been put in place before.
Oh, what would be your proudest achievement so far? Is it a single game? Is it the 4 games? Is it a buy-in from the players? What would it be?
Yeah. All those things.
That's okay.
I suppose also the growth that I can see in a lot of these young players as they start to learn what it takes to be a professional player. I think that's the biggest thing is a lot of these guys don't come from academies or come through pathways that are steeped in really elite high performance. So we're trying to educate our players around sometimes what we feel are simple things, but again, because of the different backgrounds of where our players have come from, it's probably not as simple. But watch them, and the ones that have really taken it on board, watch them flourish and learn, and utilise those skills and those new things that they've learnt, and watch them put it into place. I think that's probably some of the biggest satisfaction I feel as a coach. That's what you want to see, because those are the things that'll make them sustainable at this level. And obviously, when that happens, then it's good for the player, it's good for the club, and it's good for us as a team.
Look, we've had Sekope Kepu, and I know that he's retiring now. We've had him on the program a couple of times, and he's talked about this kind of thing, what you've talked about there as well. And it's almost like, look, you're in a professional competition, professional environment with professional players, but it's a different kind of professional, isn't it, as opposed to you coaching the Blues, for example?
Yeah. It's that context of what does professional mean. You get paid to play. That's what some people think a professional is, but it's actually everything around that. That's the easy bit. Once you get signed to a contract, you get paid straight away. But it's all those. We talk about habits and behaviours that true professionals have day in, day out. They make it part of their lives, and it's the thing that makes them consistent. I think that's what we're looking for. It's a consistency of habits, of those behaviours, because we believe that if you get that, you get consistent performances, and that's what we're trying to build here. And I'd say, our season probably hasn't been consistent as much as we would have liked. We've been able to get up for games, but then our drop away straight after, that's probably, and how big that is from one week to another, and I think if we could have had, some more weeks added onto the season right now, I think we're just starting to get that now. We're starting to get that familiarity with, what a week looks like in professional rugby. How do we handle that? How do I look after myself, not just on the field, but off the field? When I go home, how I wake up, and those are the things that I'm sure that players like Sekope and Christian Le'alifano, the guys that have been in these programs for a long time, it's just natural, and that's they become they're just habits that they have because that's what they've been doing, and they see the benefits of those, and it's those things that we need to pass on to our other players, our younger players. And again, as I said before, usually they learn that through the academy and their NPC teams, whereas, we're picking them up and having to implement that stuff as well as trying to lift their level of knowledge around the game. And there's no lack of want. There's a lot of enthusiasm around this stuff, and that's what's great. A lot of energy around, who we play for, and, trying to get the most out of their opportunities that's been given to them. And some of them have got a bit to learn around that area, but the energy's there, the want's there. It's just, again, how long it takes, and it's the thing that we all want. We all want more time, but it's hard to find sometimes.
Tana, how do you balance all of that? Because this is not an excuse comp. This is not an excuse sport. It's a result sport. It is a winning sport, and that's your mentality, and that's what you always had as a player. You had that as a coach and things. So how do you balance that? Because it must be frustrating at times. It's almost like what you're describing is you're kind of behind the eight ball a lot, but you don't have time to be behind the eight ball, and no one wants that excuse anyway. Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, 100%. Like you say, in the end, we're playing in Super Rugby, and if we want to promote our cause, then obviously the more successful you are, the better it is for not just us, but us being a team that players want to be a part of. And again, there's when you come to recruitment, and if you're always wallowing at the bottom, it's hard to convince players that it's going to be good for them and their futures to join us. So. The Super Rugby competition, that's in our team, that's the shop front window, and we can build a lot more off that if we get some successes, and as you said, everyone wants to win, and I'm no different. I want us to win, and we just got to keep building. Like we've improved from the last 2 years. We're obviously, where we are now, and we don't want to go backwards. So we've got to learn from the experiences I've had in being around those other professional environments, and how do we do that? What's the best way forward? While also making sure that we cater to, who we're here to represent. Obviously Samoa, Tonga, the Pacific Islands. We're trying to build those, but there's hopefully going to be there's a lot of layers that we have to implement and put in place to achieve that too. And it's not just an overnight thing. These things, again, just like we talked about players just before about being sustainable, we want this club to be sustainable, and we want to be able to filter those through. But again, we're at the early stages like anything, and we have to be able to move and adapt and make sure that, we've got to build. As one side builds up, we can't forget about the other areas of our club and our business to make sure that they're building up as well.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. So many words, so many pages, so many articles, so many opinions. Are you bored with it already? Or have you read the New Testament that is every single word that is put out there about the vote tomorrow at NZR HQ for the future governance of our national game? Wow. It all looks as though it's going to stay the same. The provincial unions don't want to relinquish the power that they have, and I kind of empathise with them in a bit. If there's a new 9-person board to run the game, why shouldn't at least 3 of those people be from the provinces, from where the grassroots of rugby is? David Pilkington joined us today. He was the chairman of the review panel. His name all over the report. His thoughts ahead of the big vote tomorrow.
Well, I think there's been a lot of misinformation being spread regarding the review. I think when I read the likes of Russell Poole's interview in the Herald yesterday, basically saying, apart from the desire to have 3 provincial union reps on the board, the 2 proposals are pretty much identical. Well, nothing could be further from the truth.
Should there be any representation from the PUs on the board? And if not, why not?
I think this is where the whole confusion has come into the debate, because when we referred to independence, we referred to independent from one particular member of the incorporated society or one particular stakeholder group. Our concern was that you definitely need rugby people sitting around that table. You need people with a deep understanding of the game, but you need them to represent the whole game. You don't want them coming from one particular group promoting one particular factional interest. And that's our concern about PUs, because, we've got them now on the board, they see their role as coming to Wellington to advance their particular cause. They see their role as quite a representational role. And what we're saying is we don't want a representation model. We want the 9 best people sitting around that table with the best combination of skills and experience to run what is an increasingly complicated business. And that's to preside over all aspects of the game, not the professional end, not particularly provincial union interests, not clubs, grassroots, but actually to be able to look across the total game and address what is a list of growing problems that aren't being dealt with.
Doesn't that come down, though, eventually to the quality of the individuals who would be elected? And when I've listened and read some of the provincial chair people who have spoken, I mean, these are people who run successful businesses. They were active in their communities. They seem to have those interests at heart. You know, is there a danger here of pigeonholing all of those people into this idea that they all think the same, they all represent only the same?
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, there's a lot of passionate people and largely volunteers, that currently make up the club and PU, administration structure. So, yeah, there's a lot of very, very good people out there. I guess what we were saying is you've got to complement those people with some really good, experienced governance, very good commercial experience. Now, as I say, the New Zealand Rugby is a $300 million plus business with an interface now with Silver Lake. The experience and skill needed around that rugby board has got to represent a combination of skills, which will include rugby and may well include a number of provincial union administrators currently. But the point is, in order to attract the best people to sit around that table, they need to know they're entering a professional process. It's not going to be sort of turnsies and fairsies. We were on it last time. It's your turn this time. They'll want to know that I'm going in there. I'm going to be sitting alongside a group of people that have an absolute focus on leadership and governance of New Zealand Rugby, Inc., right across the landscape.
Oh, that makes absolutely perfect sense. But then on the other side of the argument, I sit there, and this is a board to me that was hamstrung when Mark Robinson and so forth agreed to the inclusivity, equality, diversity thing where 40% of the board have to be women. They couldn't actually find the women to go on. And so, is this new entity going to be hamstrung by that you've actually got to have every member of the rainbow community represented? You're talking about the best people to do the best job. And I think most of us are nodding our heads agreeing with that. But, when you've got a board that's already committed itself that it has to have representation by one group just because it has to, how can you actually achieve that?
Well, you'll note in our report we didn't comment on gender diversity because I think that has been a distraction. I mean, what we did find when we went out and spoke with, people right across the landscape, there were a number of really good women who were on provincial rugby boards, and a lot of them, were saying, look, the system is so difficult. It's so much focused on the old boys network that we don't know if we'll stand again. There are a lot of good people there, and the growth in the women and girls game suggests that you're going to want to have people that really understand what's going to drive that game forward. So, look, I agree with you. To me, it's not about mandating. It's about, what are the challenges that we have to face and how do we get the best people around the table to address those. And I don't doubt that some of those will be women, but I start off with what are the skills and the capability and knowledge we want, not, how many have to wear dresses and how many wear suits.
Devlin.
That is a disgusting act.
The platform.
This whole idea of a brand new 9-member governance board for New Zealand Rugby. See, New Zealand Rugby has already hogtied itself into this idiocy of guaranteeing to the government that it is going to have a board that is based on equality, inclusivity and diversity. And that means that there have to be 4 women on that board. 40% of the board have to be women. So this is why it is stuck in such a mire, because it has subscribed and bought into this idiocy. Surely the best people that can do the job, the best brains that are totally committed to it, are the ones that should be hired. But no, it can't be that. You've got to have one from every single sector of. It's insane, isn't it? So New Zealand Rugby's bitter and squabbling and divided. And whatever happens in the end, then they're going to sit there and go, oh, okay, well, we actually do want the 9 best applicants. No, we don't want the 9 best applicants. We want a rainbow. We want this demographic. We want 4 women. So, yeah, this is why they're in the mire. And this is why the future of New Zealand Rugby at the moment is so dire.
The Tide 5.
5 separate sporting topics, roughly a minute or so on each. When the bell goes, we move on to the next topic, Lachlan. The NZR SGM tomorrow. What do you think is going to happen there? The Auckland City Council tomorrow going to vote 2 proposals at the stadium. Key Park, this is the big U-shaped one at the waterfront. It's down by the what used to be the Something Arena. Now it's the Something Arena. It's where the Breakers play. It's by that. Okay. Or the revamped Eden Park with a roof. NBA, we've got Mavs T-Wolves on today. Game 4. Is this going to be a sweep for Dallas? Raymond Tupu. This is just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I'll argue to the ends of the earth that this should never have been a red card. Now he's got 3 weeks, and unless the Hurricanes make the final, the Super Rugby season is over. Spencer Leniu. Let's start with Spence, shall we? He's come out, been interviewed, got a couple of quotes about the racial slur to Ezra Mann and Mam, and this has been put in the Brisbane Courier Mail, who've now shut down all their comments because obviously people are going to erupt out of it. Give me his quote. The remorseful Spencer Leniu, Lachlan, wishing that he'd never called Mam a monkey like he did.
When you go through tough times like that, you'll know really quickly who your circle is.
Hang on a second. Is he talking about himself or Ezra? He's talking about himself here, isn't he?
Well,
I'm sorry, Spencer. Sorry, your tough time, Spencer? Sorry?
No one was talking to me for 8 weeks except those who were in my circle. I'm grateful to the Roosters for the time and the effort they put into me because they put their reputation on the line. Spencer Leniu.
Has he learned anything from this?
No.
Does he actually look in the mirror and go, my God, what of an a-hole of a thing that I said that I did? Has he changed his mindset as a result? Because remember what he said afterwards. Oh, no, this is just banter between mates on the field. This is what we all say to each other.
Fun and games.
Yeah, fun and games.
Yeah. He hasn't learned anything. He never realised it at the time what he'd said was wrong. He never denied it, which meant he said it. And now it's been 12 weeks since the first round.
Yeah.
We've just had 12 rounds in the books. And he, ahead of Origin, being interviewed for New South Wales, has painted himself as the victim, essentially, saying, oh, it was such a hard period of time for me.
Oh, terrible.
I racially insulted someone. It was so hard for me.
Yeah, so hard for me. And, and nobody...
People wouldn't talk to me. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Idiot. What an idiot.
3 weeks for Tupu, and I know we disagreed with this on Monday. We're going to disagree again. The Foul Play Review Committee, the FPRC, and this is the quote from them last night. And sitting on this committee is Afisa Tanu and Stephen Terblanche. Terblanche, of course, the ex-Springbok, and Junior Tanu, I think a name familiar with most of us of the age and stage. He used to play NPC, Super Rugby, played for the All Blacks, played for Samoa, of course. The FPRC said, applying World Rugby's head contact process. Now, that's all you need to know, okay? So what that says when the committee sits is just like the referee who's been told by World Rugby to ref it like this, those that then look at it are looking at it purely under exactly the auspices of World Rugby and what they want to conclude. So there's no point going to the judiciary after this. World Rugby have set these insane rules, and even though that for most of us, they're just idiotic, they're incomprehensible, they aren't practicable at all, but because they're World Rugby's rules, those who are getting paid on this committee, and they get handsomely paid, this isn't voluntary. You don't go and sit on these fair play committees and review these things. You get paid, okay? You get expenses and everything else. They're just doing what they're told so that they can keep their positions on there. The referees are doing what they're told so that they can keep their jobs as well. This is their explanation. Okay. Direct head contact made to the victim player with the player's shoulder at high speed while the player's body position always moving upwards and towards the collision. Assess the act as reckless. In the FPRC's view, no sudden or significant change in height or direction, a late change in dynamics, or for any other relevant mitigating factor set out within the head contact process to result in mitigation sufficient downgrade the incident to a yellow card took place. So look at it again and again and again. And this is, okay, I might be wrong here, but I know I'm not. You can sit there and look at those pictures and think that that is a foul act and deserves a red card. I'll argue against it to the end of the earth that I don't think it did. At the very worst, it was a yellow, but I think that the player, Tupu Vai, with the ball, should also be in front of the judiciary, and he should actually be going to how to carry with the ball school if Tupu goes to tackle school. And part of going into a tackle is that you don't duck your head below the guy's waistline so that there's no way that he can get his shoulder out of the goddamn way.
It wasn't below his waist.
Bloody
It wasn't that low. That's an exaggeration. I largely agree with you in the sense that Tupu Vai... you've got your mind made up, so there's not been me trying to convince you otherwise. But Tupu Vai does drop himself quite low, but the thing I think that does not bode well for Tupu, Raymond's his first name, is it? Raymond?
Yep,
Raymond Tupu, is that the other guy in the tackle next to him, who I think it might have been Sione Mafaleo, I'm not too sure, might have been Xavier Numia, I don't know, one of the other props, one of the other front rowers, big guy. The other guy in the tackle goes... lower and doesn't actually make contact with the head. So it tells you that Raymond Tupu could have gone lower. Now, I agree that when you're going that low as an attacking player, you're almost asking for the contact if you're going head first. I do agree with you on that. And it's a bit unfair on the tacklers. But your case kind of falls apart when the other bloke in the tackle is either at the same height or lower and isn't making forceful contact with the head of the player that you're tackling.
Interesting that the judiciary has no mention of that whatsoever, because
look at the footage.
That's an argument, though. That is an argument that should be put forward under that circumstance. Yeah. But they're not even arguing that, Lachlan. They're just saying World Rugby are telling us this, and we're doing what World Rugby's telling us. Smith & Curry is shutting down in Queen Street, Auckland. What a disaster this is. Loss of hundreds of jobs. They're also closing their Newmarket store. Queen Street is not fit for purpose. We need New Zealand Rugby to do a review into Queen Street, don't we? And for Mark Robinson to come out and say that the NPC is not fit for purpose, Farah Palmer Cup's not fit for purpose, the structure and governance of New Zealand Rugby is not fit for purpose, and you can add Queen Street into that. Who goes to Queen Street? Why would you go to Queen Street? It is now prohibitable, if that is such a word, to take a car there. You can't drive there, so you've got to rely on public transport, which is unreliable. And when you get there, it's just crime-ridden. And it's just full of scuzz who are going to rob you, who are going to steal your handbag, who are going to shoulder you as you walk past on the street. It's filthy. It's got rubbish everywhere. Why would you stay there? Why would you keep your shop there? The FIFA delegates came for the Women's World Cup last year, and a note was left on all of their beds, Lachlan, saying, don't go out at night around Fort Street and Lower Queen Street. Don't go out after 8 o'clock at night. Welcome to New Zealand, people. What a starts with a sh and rhymes with bit show.
Well, I mean, welcome to Auckland, and Wellington's a bit like this as well. I can't speak for the rest of the country, but my goodness, Auckland's Queen Street. I mean, people my age, that should be your hub. Auckland's main road. Auckland's,
should be.
With shopping,
Maybe
restaurants,
when I first
bars.
moved to Auckland, and the first time was in 87, I loved Queen Street. I used to hang around Queen Street.
Well, it's the place to go. Anytime you go down there now, some people take this the wrong way, think it's offensive, but no, you come across a lot of homeless people, which in many ways it can be, they can be quite dangerous.
I don't know how many of them are actually homeless. If you're defining homeless, they've got no home to go to. I just think they hang around there. They're beneficiaries who hang around there.
Well, a lot of them hang around. There's a lot who, the ones who actually are homeless but don't want to be homeless are the ones who go to the Auckland City Mission or usually actually hang out around the suburbs. This is what my old man used to tell me because he was a cop. He said the ones that actually hang out in the city drinking the methylated spirits and yelling around, they're the ones who actually love living in the city and actually refuse to go to the mission. The ones that you walk past who are about 20 years old who are on their cell phones the whole time, right? Vaping and on their cell phones. Are they homeless? Well, no, but they're not really sort of the crowd I'm talking about. Anyway, point is that it's a stinky place. It's a dangerous place. There's not a lot there to draw you in. And the biggest problem is there's no cops on beat.
Yeah.
And when there's cops on beat, they usually move those people along to the shelters. And if they don't want to go to the shelters, they tell them to leave the city and go back to their home then.
Is mountaineering a sport?
Well, I tell you what, this is the least sporty Type 5 we've ever had.
Is mountaineering a sport?
Well, it's an extreme sport, because if rock climbing and bouldering are sports, then this absolutely is a sport, yes.
Yeah, I've always thought, it's not a game, it's not a pastime, is it? So, yeah, we'll talk to Peter Hillary in just a second. The big vote tomorrow, NZR SGM. What's going to happen?
Oh, gee.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Now, I just quickly, there's a section that kind of confuses me about the whole thing. So there's 90 votes to be cast, right, by secret ballot. The unions, the unions first vote yes or no to the review proposal, the main one, and then even if that gains a 2/3 majority, they will still vote on the second proposal, which is pretty much the same, but the second one asks that you have 3 provincial representatives on the board. If the second proposal gains a majority, it will prevail, even if the review proposal also gained a majority. So if they both gained a majority, they're going to go with the second one no matter what. Well, how does that make sense? What if the first one gets more of a majority? What if that gets a high percentage of votes? Why are you then going to implement the second one?
Good, very good question. 29th of May 1953, that day edged forever in world history. Edmund Hillary, then knighted, became Sir Ed. Tenzing Norgay, Sherpa Tenzing, got to the top. We knocked the bastard off. That was the famous quote from Sir Ed. Yeah, conquered Everest on this day in 1953. His eldest son, Peter, joined us on the program today to reflect on all things Everest, this momentous day in world history. 1953, you've done this yourself, and I want to talk to you about that. But what those guys did then with the equipment that they had, without the satellite communication, everyone else, just get your mind around it now, people. It's such an extraordinary thing to have done.
Look, it's absolutely right. They were going into the unknown. When someone goes to climb the mountain now, we know a lot about acclimatization, we know about the route, what to expect, the sort of equipment you need to have. They were making it up as they went along, and it was extraordinary. They were going into the unknown, and they had to deal with whatever was thrown at them. For example, they didn't completely know that they would remain conscious at that altitude. These were real concerns. And so Dad and Tenzing, by achieving what they did, getting to the summit of the world's highest mountain, showed that it can be done. And anyone who goes somewhere first opens the doors to all the others that follow. They really do change our perspective on what we think is possible.
Before we even get into the questions about the climbing thing, we've also got to, and this is a point that has to be well made. Your father just didn't climb Everest. The work that he did afterwards in Nepal, and the setting up of the hospitals, the schools, just his love for the people and the amount of time and energy and effort he put in, and was probably away from family a hell of a lot. To me, it has to stand right beside it.
Oh, look, Dad absolutely felt that really his greatest achievement was his commitment and friendship with the local people around the foot of Everest. And look, I think it is. Typically people go to the Himalayas because they want to see the great mountains or climb the great mountains, but they keep coming back because of the friendships with the local people. And that was certainly the story of Ed Hillary, his commitment to the people there and really wanting to make a difference. At the request and the petitions of the local people, and, it was hard to really turn them down. When some kid comes along, they've got a little petition, and what do they want? They want a school so they can get an education. And, my parents kept answering the call, and these days I'm the chair of the Himalayan Trust, and my son Alexander's our general manager, and we're still at it.
Peter, would you, I suppose with your father doing it, did that mean that, it was just natural that you were always going to go into that yourself? If it wasn't, so if he hadn't have done it, do you imagine what life might have been like for the Hillary family?
Oh, look, that's an interesting thing to ponder. Look, I think the thing is, I'm of a very similar sort of type of person to my father. I enjoy pushing myself with big challenges. And I guess if you're brought up in a family like that typically would go off climbing or skiing or camping out in the wilderness, you grow up feeling very familiar with that sort of environment. And of course, as my father organised some of his last big expeditions, I was just old enough to join the expeditions, and I just loved it. I loved what I saw. I loved the people involved in it, and I love the fact that Dad got so much pleasure out of it, and I just felt I want to do these sorts of things too.
In terms of your own climbing of that mountain, how scary is it? And just talk us through the decisions to turn back, because that is such a courageous thing to do when you've gone to that much work, that much effort, but you actually have to think about it and realise that I've got to get down. That's the most important part.
Look, that is the achievement, getting to the summit and getting yourself all the way back down safely to base camp again. And, that's what you've got to do. But I think one of the very scary aspects of Mount Everest is not just how steep it is, how exposed it is, how ferocious the weather can be, the crevasses, the potential for avalanche and serac collapses. It's the altitude. It's how our human physiology slowly adapts to the altitude. It completely debilitates you. You feel very weak and winded up high on the mountain. You can't sleep properly. It really is almost like suffocation at times, some of the effects of trying to sleep up in a little tent up on the mountain. So these are things that you slowly adapt to, but they're uncomfortable. They're scary. You really get pushed around by the altitude and just the extremes of the mountain.
Yeah, you summited in 1990 and then you did it again in 2003. Once you've gone to the summit, why go back there again?
Oh, look, it's a bit like, climbing different mountains. I've been a climber all my life. Climbing is one of those things I really love. I guess you could say to a skier, why do you just want to ski down the same mountain many different times? It's because you love it. Why do you want to play many different games of rugby? Because you love it, and each game is slightly different. You get something different from it each time. And actually, to go back a second time and climb Everest was amazing. In some ways, I think I saw it more clearly than ever before because I knew what to expect. So you're actually absorbing it, taking it in, and really able to enjoy it even more.
When you turn back, how did you feel about that? Because as I said, it's a really courageous thing to do, to realise that, hey, it's not going to happen this time, but you've got so close.
Well, look, I mean, I know a lot of people go, you're only, 500 vertical meters from the summit of the mountain, but you turned around. But at the time, it starts to be very clear that if you keep going, you're going to die. You're not going to be able to extract yourself from the particular, whether it's the weather or your acclimatization or various events that have happened. You have to get yourself down. So making critical decisions about when to push on, when to go to the top, and other times when you're going to go, look, we're going to go down, we're going to regroup, we'll try again next week when conditions are a bit more favorable. These are really important parts of critical decision-making on big mountains.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. Blah, 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 blah. Miles Davis joins us every Wednesday. His thoughts on what is happening in the big, wide, wonderful world of sport. The board meeting tomorrow at NZR. What's going to happen? Can the Canes win it all? His beloved Hurricanes. The big vote's happening tomorrow. We both know what's the outcome of this. The provincial unions are not going to vote themselves out of existence, are they?
Well, it's quite interesting, really, because what happens after they do that? Where does it go from there? We've already know that the New Zealand Rugby Players Association are going to decide that they're going to set up, and I still don't know how this actually works within the sort of legality of administering a game in New Zealand, we already know they're going to set up something to run the professional game. Does that mean that New Zealand Rugby gets left with the semi-professional or the amateur game? Does the professional game mean that they take over the sort of responsibility for the NPC sides? And if that was the case, then how do they overcome the unions who've got control of their own sides? Like, to me, it's a schmozzle. I've really tried to analyse it, and I'd love your thoughts on it, mate. Can you really work out, other than the fact that the players want more power and a bigger slice of the pie, can you actually work out what it's all about?
I know the way that it is at the moment, when it's the report says that the current structure is not fit for governance. I mean, I go as far as all of those involved in the administration. Well, I mean, what they're saying is that these people shouldn't be running the game. Okay, part of the quagmire that they've got themselves locked into here, Miles, is because of this ridiculous commitment to diversity hire. You've got a board that has to be, for a start, 40% women, right? Now, if there are enough women that have the acumen, the business skills, the love of rugby and everything else to step on and stand on that board, fine. But remember that they couldn't find them. So in the end, they hired Dame Patsy and she became the chairman because she'd been the Governor-General. I don't really care who runs the bloody game as long as those who run the game have it in their best interest. But I'm with you on this one. I just can't believe that if the vote goes against what Rob Nichol and the RPA want tomorrow, the Rugby Professional Players Association, that somehow they think that they're going to create another entity and they're going to run the game. I mean,
and this is what gets me. First point that I'll make there, that they're saying that the current board who run the game and the constitution and the structure is not fit for purpose. But they also at the same time say that if this goes through, the Pilkington review and the changes go through, that they're going to disband the board, they'll all resign, but they're all encouraged to reapply.
Yeah.
All right? So the people that aren't worthy of running the game can reapply for their jobs, even though they're not worthy of running the game. Secondly, are we now expected to believe that rugby players are more capable of running the game than experienced business people?
Well, it's just ridiculous. I know.
I'm totally seriously. I'm totally at loss. I can see it being really painful. I don't doubt that changes need to be made, but if the players get their way and they take over, I can't believe for 1 minute that they're going to be so conscientious about the pathways and the grassroots that they're going to divert any funds, time, energy to looking after that game unless there's something specifically in it for them.
Miles, can Canes win it all, do you think? I'm looking at the fixture list at the moment and, there's so much riding on so many games over the weekend. The Hurricanes have got it all to do themselves, of course. If they beat MP with a bonus point, then they put the Blues under an awful lot of pressure. The Blues would have to beat the Chiefs with a bonus point. If the Chiefs lose, if the Blues lose, the Brumbies could actually overtake them into position 1 or 2. So it's a cracking last round. But back to the original question, at the end of it all, do you think the Canes will be the number 1 seed?
Normally in the old days when you used to support the Hurricanes before you defected, you always think, we're going to blow it sooner or later. You get so used to it that you try not to get too carried away. But the way that they've bounced back from adversity this time, I've actually got a feeling that they might actually do it. But it's so... I was just thinking the other day, I think it'd be great to see the Crusaders. To be honest, I know I'm going to have to watch my mouth.
Go on, say it.
I wouldn't mind seeing them go on and win it because they got so much stick, and Rob Penny got so much stick. The humble pie, there wouldn't be enough in the bakery to go round if they go on and win it. But it's ridiculous that a side that has won 3 out of 13 games is still in the chance of the playoffs. I mean, that is... Yeah,
hey, look, it's nonsensical. Really it is. At the same time, though, this competition, it's only got, 14 rounds, and so it can't compete with, the NRL, which goes for 24 rounds, and and it can't compete with the Premier League. It can't compete with all of those. So, unless they actually do something to increase the amount of fixtures, make it an 18 or make it a kind of 20-round competition, if they did that, then they could actually reduce the finals to, 5 teams or 6 teams. It is silly, isn't it?
Do you know what they could have done, mate? I've been on about this for 20-odd years now. They should have kept the structure of the provincial structure and somehow managed to give financial assistance, whatever, and kept that parochial base that they'd had for 100 years. And the thing is then, the season could go on and on and on, like it does in Europe, and they have the European games played at set weekends where there's no championship games, like Premier League games, and they could have done that over here. Therefore, it's basically one season, like the football season, with cup games played, along the way, which would be like the Super Rugby type games, and it would be the same teams playing. So you could relate to it. You get a season ticket with a whole lot. You'd have games for the broadcaster to put out there. That would have been a solution. But now they've got a higgledy-piggledy. They've got a premium competition that people are losing interest in. They've got a secondary competition which is getting devalued all the time, and people are losing interest in as well. So they've fallen between two stools.
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.